Okay, chapter 2. I figured out that we're probably better off, rather, like I mentioned before, rather than trying to create some kind of classroom situation, it serves no purpose. You guys are all real smart and you're all good at what you do. So the reality here is we want to focus on what makes us different than the other consultants, and what is a consultant supposed to do, okay? I think more than the importance of home inspection skills, okay, which, first of all, everybody's got the knowledge. You all have the knowledge, whether it's in architecture, engineering, project management. You all know about products, and you've been trained to work with building codes and things of that nature. Now, in the 203K program, we are not code enforcement officers, and we make our inspections without passion or prejudice as it relates to safety and health. Let's say, and normally speaking, you'd see an outlet that's got maybe 10 feet of BX. Normally speaking, that would be would not be permissible. Okay, but in our case, we look at that BX and we say, is it grounded? Is it clamped? Is it connected? Is it safe? If it's safe, it's safe. It's not our job. The thing that's important to us are knowledge. Okay, and so that's what the skills for inspections will come. We'll talk about the software and the way that it's all put together, but most importantly, it's what we know. Because 90% of what we do is talk, okay, and 10% is really the report itself. And then we have discussions with the lenders and underwriters in many cases, which will be another discussion for another time. But that's the whole essence of reading, glossing through the manuals, but more importantly are the mortgage letters. Okay, those are very, very important. Minimum property standards. Okay, minimum property standards are important because people say, well, gee, is this a 203K item? Can we do this? And the answer is yes. Can we repair electric? Can we repair this? Can we repair that? Of course we can. Okay, but there are certain things that can't be resolved. Okay, and when you go through the minimum property standards, you can see that there are some items that there's no way to fix them. Whether they're close to train tracks or in a contaminated area or underwater or God knows what all, or right on a highway. A lot of that times you have to actually ask the lender for certain things that don't show up. But the reality here is, can you service the building? Do you have to go through the building to get to another area? Is everything usable? Are the bathrooms accessible to each living unit? And that's very, very important. But most of the and that's something you definitely want to work on. So you want to go through those mortgage letters. Is mundane as it may be, and in some cases repetitive, and a lot of times they'll digress and go off to the appraiser's responsibility. It's always good to know, because remember, although we know more about the actual constructions and inspections than the appraiser, he outranks us. Okay, and if he raises a question, we have to answer it. So, we're talking all those other items. Not the least of which is mold. When we go on an inspection, I'm to the point now where if someone spills a Coke on the floor, I'm calling for a mold inspection. Okay, we have to be very careful how we word items, and if we feel that additional inspections are required, then we would have to suggest that at the onset. But once again, backing up here, talking about what it is people ask us, the biggest problem that I see is this confusion of streamline versus full program. Now, keep in mind, a lot of lenders like to use the streamline because there's no consultant involved, there's no additional paperwork, they're easier to process. And what they do a lot of times is they force projects into streamline because there's very limited secondary inspections, okay, and it passes through the underwriting process without a problem. And so as soon as it's underneath the dollar ceiling, okay, they feel like it's a slam dunk, it's tag 'em and bag 'em. And you hear people talk about 35,000, 35,000. Everything you read in those manuals will tell you 35,000, but you will come across a section that talks about the actual 35,000. What is entailed in the 35,000? In reality, you only have $30,000 or slightly less to use in real dollars for rehabilitation on a streamline. You might say, well, why is that? Because the $35,000 includes the contingency, which can be up to 20%, and all the fees related to closing on the loan. So if you back all that out, okay, you end up with $30,000. Now, generally speaking, the Streamline is for, you'll see lists of different things that you can do with them. They talk about cabinets and driveways and roofs and whatnot. But generally speaking, they have to do with single service contractors. I need a new roof, it's one guy. I need new cabinets, it's basically one guy. New flooring, new plumbing, it's basically remove and replace. Where the problem comes in is anytime there's the need for the coordination of multiple contractors to provide one particular item in construction, that would be considered structural. Okay, when you start pulling down drywall, moving electrical outlets and things of that nature, that could be construed as a full K. Okay, and the reason that they want it to go on the full K side is because they can't have a homeowner administrating contractors when they have absolutely no clue of what's going on. And what happens is the projects all have problems. I've been called out on these where I've gone back on some where Home Depot was the contractor, and they had, you know, just the worst indigenous contractors imaginable, and I went back and I was horrified. And it's all because they tried to squeeze it in as a Streamline K. Now, why did they do it? I already explained to you what it's about, the paperwork, but also qualifications. There's a good many loan officers that are only certified to do streamlines because there's a different educational level that has to do with the full K. You have to be another certification. So they're trying to package all this stuff and crank it out. And so what it is it becomes, it's like government speak. It's called Streamline, but man, they can be anything but streamlined. And so that is something that you have to be able to discern when you're talking with somebody. Talking with the lenders, in most cases they don't even understand, okay, and the buyers, because they think they can go out and get bids, and I got bids from this and I got bids from that, but in reality, as you're gleaning information from them when you're talking on the phone, you're understanding that it's not a Streamline at all, okay, and as far as the Streamline goes, first of all, consultant's not necessary. At least that's what they say. Now, there are certain procedures on a Streamline that a consultant can carry out. In some situations, there's what they call a plan review, okay, where a good lender, not all of them, and there's not that many that do it, would call for a plan review. Now, what is a plan review? A plan review is somebody that has knowledge of the case system, which is us. This is done by the consultant, where we would, just a minimal charge, $150, $200, would go out and meet with the client. And this is to certify that there truly is a Streamline, and review their quotes. Okay, let's say they have roofing quote, driveway quote, whatever, kitchen cabinet quote. You look at it, you determine that it's okay. But see, now you're on the premises, okay, and you carry the license of the consultant. So you have to be very much aware of, are there other deficiencies in the building? Now, since you're only being paid for a plan review, now I personally do this. I require that when I go out and do a plan review, that they have a licensed home inspection, a home inspector who's licensed in the state of Illinois, and provide you with that home inspection. So as you walk in the door, you look at the cabinets, you look at the roofing, you look at the driveway, okay, and you're not going to walk around. You're not looking at electric, you're not looking in the attic. Before you to say, yeah, this is a 203K product, you need to have that home inspection, because now from that single location, whether you're standing in the foyer or the garage, you can page through that and now look for the deficiencies. As soon as you pick up on something, double tap wires, rotted floor joists, leaking basement, it's game over. It's no longer a Streamline. And then you tell the people right there, this is not a Streamline, and you let the lender know it's not a Streamline. So the whole Streamline process is not streamlined. And like I had mentioned earlier, almost all the conversations that I have with some of these mortgage brokers, and the bankers too, they really don't comprehend what a Streamline is. They just think it's a quick slam dunk. Now, there are lenders that only do Streamlines, okay, but they require a consultant. Now you might say, wait a minute, this is ridiculous. Okay, it says in the paperwork that you don't need a consultant and you don't use a consultant on Streamline. And if the project requires a consultant, then it is no longer a streamline. Well, like I mentioned earlier, everyone's making up the rules however they want to do it. And in this particular case, Guaranteed Rate Mortgage is one of those companies that only does streamlines, okay, but they insist on a full write-up. And the reason being is that they definitely, their intention from the onset is to sell this mortgage on the secondary market. Now, they probably all end up at Bank of America. And the banks that buy this are extremely strict. They're strict because the loan officers are, you know, tag them and bag them. They're not paying attention. So Guaranteed Rate wants these mortgages packaged perfectly, documented exactly. So we'll get calls on streamlines, and we'll charge accordingly. Okay, but it is a full write-up, and so that's another kind of streamline. I personally don't see too many, only for Guaranteed Rate now, and so that's basically how the streamline works. But the conversation is, and the other part of streamline is there's no minimum. Okay, it can be for $1,000, $2,000, or whatever, and you'll pick that up as you go through the mortgage letters. Now, going on to the full 203K. You know, that's important because that takes into consideration most everything. Now, there is a minimum on that. Okay, it's got to be $5,000, which most 98% of them are. Okay, and that's when you're pulling down drywalls, or you're moving plumbing fixtures, and then you also have the coordinated effort of a general contractor who's multitasking, coordinating trades that have to be integrated. The other thing is, there always has to be a general contractor, and it's always a full K whenever there's mold. Okay, I'm going on one today where they have some cracks. Okay, if they're cracks and they just leak, then it's a patch, and it could be streamlined. Okay, when I go there, if I go there and there's vertical separation, or the wall is bowing, or whatever, you know, then it's something totally different. So it's all about knowledge. So most of the knowledge that you're going to glean from this is knowledge you're going to use in conversation, whether you get called into a seminar or you're accompanying me on a seminar, whatever it might be. When people ask questions, they're always looking for the easy way out, and that's why it's very, very important to know the difference between streamline and full K. That's it. There's nothing really more to say about it. And so the emphasis is on reading the mortgage letters, not all of them. I mean, you don't have to check, you know, appraiser's notes and all the rest of this kind of stuff. But certainly the minimum property standards, and you'll see on our software, the newer software that I'm using, it actually has a checklist for minimum property standards. So you'll be able to go through this line by line and be able to discern right away and have a good report. So that's basically it. I just wanted to emphasize what most of our duties are, and most of our duties are talking and explaining over and over repetitively, because this comes up again and again and again. And most of the problems, I mean, even are with the lenders, people that I've worked with, they don't fully understand. So just make sure you read all that up. Now, I will talk further on some of the other items, but basically you can learn a lot from the mortgage letters. They're not as brutal as the actual manuals themselves. Now, you'll come across also the one with new construction. There's really none of that going on. And you know, I remember seeing that like 30-some years ago, and I wanted no involvement in it because it's so restrictive and draconian. It's a kind of thing that you might do, but we certainly wouldn't. And there's none going on right now because the 203K program does not do new construction. Although there is kind of new construction because we can build off of foundations. In other words, if the foundation is still in place, or you demolish down to the foundation, you can construct on that same site, using that structure is a 203K loan. So that's it, and this is just about reading the mortgage letters and understanding the program so that you can be engaged in a dialogue, the same way I did. Okay, before I really had the skills acquired for the inspections and making of the reports, basically I talked my way in. And that's really what it's all about, because the rest of that stuff we'll go through again, and that's it. So see you later. Bye.